Do you remember Rooster Teeth games? Kind of. Rooster Teeth and RWBY was something I really liked when I was younger. Achievement Hunter was really fun to watch, and On the Spot was probably one of their funniest shows. That interest started to decline over the years, and not for the many controversial reasons. RWBY, and especially in its later years, became really painful to watch, and I stopped watching Rooster Teeth altogether. Rooster Teeth games aren't exactly known for their quality, and with Rooster Teeth dead and RWBY sold off to rot in Viz Media's vaults, it's no wonder most of their things have been forgotten. Well, mostly. RWBY Grimm Eclipse is something I have history with. I played it when it first came into early access and on and off after the official release. I've always felt that it was okay. It had an active player base, for the most part, which declined after the final update. That's when finding a game with people in it took a really long time, which is why I dropped it. But I think the most interesting thing, and the reason why I wanted to make this video, is its player base. For the most part, Grimm Eclipse is a dead game, but it has a consistent 5 or so people playing daily. I'm not gonna lie, I've been eyeballing the player count for a long time after I stopped playing, and that number has hardly hit 0. So that inspired me to play through Grimm Eclipse again. I've got a goal going into this. I'll of course play through the campaign, but I'm leaving my game open to the public to try and connect to the remaining players. I'd like to know why they keep coming back.
Oh yeah!
The first thing I realized after starting the game was that the D-pad wasn't working, which isn't a big deal, just a mild inconvenience, I guess. For your playable characters, you got RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and Yang. There's also a Team Juniper DLC, but we'll be focusing on the main 4 for now. I chose Yang, since she's my favorite character from the show, voiced by Barbara Dunkelman. Things start off quick with no intro cutscene, just straight to the gameplay. I leapt down from the ledge, but not before admiring a Grimm that got stuck between some pots, and started the first encounter of Grimm Eclipse. Combat's pretty simple, you got your basic light and heavy attacks. You can also interrupt enemy attacks, stun and finish them off with team attacks, which function as a way to promote teamwork. But since I'm playing on my own at the moment, I'll have to do the follow-up myself for extra damage, which, in a sad way, is like playing catch with myself. Your aura is basically your health, regenerating after not being hit. When it depletes, you can only take a few more hits before dying. If it sounds similar to Halo, that's because this was directly inspired by it. After the fight, we get a call that triggers my fight or flight senses as a raging predator begins to speak with me. Despite this troubling ordeal, I had to listen to figure out what I was even doing here. So basically, we've been recruited to fix the security network located in the Emerald Forest. It'd be devastating if the security around the border failed, letting in all the filthy creatures. I should also mention that there are collectible artifacts you find throughout the game that give you a small XP boost. Collect 30 of them and you get a small Easter egg at the end of the game. We're then introduced to the next common enemy of the game, the Beowulf. Yeah, these guys aren't very threatening. They're do the same attack over again, and it's the only thing that they're due. I hope you like hearing the same roar and slash noise, because you'll be listening to this for the entire game. I leveled up after the fight and finally got to pick my first skill. Yeah, so the D-pad not working is becoming a major issue right now. Without it, I can't choose any skills, which is kind of important. Being a gamer, my atrophied legs would not fit to make the trip over to my PlayStation 4 to grab the extra controllers, so I had to fix the issue right here and now. It turns out this is a common issue with Grimm Eclipse, and a quick troubleshoot later it was completely fixed. I chose the improved blast perk and made my way to the control center. Once there, I was contacted yet again by our favorite predator, who told us to protect the security node, which meant defeating 4 waves of Grimm, which was easy enough. I'm not sure if this was a bug or not, but the last enemy in the 3rd wave was shy and didn't come out until I ran around the room like a jackass. Not even the Alpha Beowulf, which served as a kind of mini-boss, was much of a challenge. We move on to Chapter 2 and face the next Grimm type on our roster to fight, the Borbatusk. Its spinning attack is easy enough to dodge, but the quick headbutt it does can hurt you real bad if you're not careful. We activate a switch to extend the bridge, which forces us to fight more waves of Grimm. When we're finished, we head to the last security node. I'd like to say this next big fight went as smoothly as the previous ones, but, well... God damn it! I got a little careless, what can I say? I redo the fight and play a bit more cautiously this time. Our reward is a massive info dump to progress the story. The device on the node and the cages have the symbol of Merlot Industries. They shut down after the collapse of Mountain Glen, so there's some real tomfoolery going on here. We'll need these young huntresses in training to undertake this very dangerous mission to a Grimm-infested city if we want to solve this mystery. Very reasonable thinking. By the way, it's established in RWBY lore that Grimm typically die when they're kept in captivity. I don't remember if they ever explained how they're kept alive, so keep this in mind as we continue to play. We start Chapter 3 at Mountain Glen and use my newly acquired skill point to invest in the range tree. With all the main roads blocked, we're gonna need to go through the old canal to get through the center of town to the old Merlot building. Much like in the previous chapter, the door needs time to open and we gotta fight more waves of Grimm to progress. It's here we encounter the next piece of Grimm fodder, Ursas hit really hard and are extremely spongy. Luckily, they're also incredibly stupid and will stun themselves with their own attack. Truly the superior species. Now that the Ursa have successfully self-sabotaged themselves, I can finish up the last wave. We'll just need to clear out the last few Grimm here at the center of town and we'll be finished. Oh, alright. This is an Alpha Ursa. It'll be the only time you see one in the entire game. If you thought the normal Ursas were spongy, this guy outdoes them all. 2 hits from a regular attack is enough to kill you, so you need to be careful. Especially with his ground AoE, as that can kill you in 1 hit if you're unlucky like I was. Fortunately, he suffers from the same flaws as the other Ursas, where he stuns himself after doing a slam attack. This is where most of your damage will come from, because attacking him normally deals very little damage. I don't think it's a great fight, especially since he only has 2 attacks he'll do. It's overall really boring. And after a painfully long fight, the Alpha Ursa is finally taken care of. However, it seems a shockwave of the fight triggers an earthquake, ending the chapter. Merlot Tower is struck, and the shockwave sends us into the depths of Mountain Glen. Truly horrifying because, I don't know. Oobleck just kind of says it's more dangerous now, and that's all we get. My headcanon is that if we don't escape in time, Yang will turn the rest of her team into a dinner special. To really understand this horror, search up Yang Vora Google. Anyways, while exploring the depths, we come across a new type of Grimm. Its different skin enrages me, so I punch it, and it explodes in my face, nearly killing me. Oobleck described them as being some kind of modified Grimm. Definitely won't be good if there's more of them out there. 1 ambush later, and I discover an armed bomb on a track that conveniently leads to a deep chasm. We're gonna need to get rid of this. But first, I need to fuel the cart, and only specific vents have dust crystals. Have a vent that's close to you? Tough luck, dumbass. That one doesn't have a crystal. You need to go to the marked vents. While delivering fuel to the cart, I tried to detonate a mutated creeper to kill the surrounding Grimm, but my creativity wasn't rewarded as they seemed to have friendly fire turned off. The coward's way. 5 refuels later, and I send a bomb into the chasm as it detonates on the way down. I'd say that went smoothly. Don't mind the echoes screaming from the pit. They were like that when I got here. Chapter 5 takes us to Forever Falls and wait. Why are we even here? It looks like we exited that tunnel, and the tracks will make me think that it connects to Mountain Glen. If that's the case, that's a long walk from Mountain Glen. Anyways, Chapter 5 starts with what the wiki calls a puzzle. However, it's not much of a puzzle since all you need to do is break the pots to find a key. In my case, the key was right next to the door. Instead of progressing forward after the big fight, I remembered I could jump up the wall onto the other path that has a jumping puzzle. You could do the puzzle properly. However, I used my 200 IQ brain to instead jump up the rocks at the end, bypassing the puzzle entirely. This next area looks promising. It's nice and big, which would make you think it'd be a boss. However, my hopes were immediately shattered when the words Wave 1 flashed. We do get a new mutated variant of the Beowulf to fight. This is starting to get interesting. He's got a variety of attacks he can do. He does become trivial when you realize you can simply walk around him and all of his attacks will just miss. You, of course, don't need to fight him like this, but it really shows how kinda lacking the enemy AI is. Well, it doesn't look like my question from the beginning of the chapter will be answered. We do seem to be following some suspicious tracks that are somehow connected to Merlot Industries, although that wasn't clear from the start. Chapter 6 starts about the same as Chapter 5, with another door puzzle and the same goal as searching for these mysterious tracks. And you know what? We're just gonna skip all of this, because it really doesn't have any point of interest or any impact on the story. When we do finally encounter something interesting, we see an active ship from Merlot Industries. This means that not only are they still doing business, but are actively avoiding paying their taxes. The last door leads to a temple filled with more cages, and our progress is stopped yet again until we finish more Ways of Grimm. I noticed while fighting that I missed a chest piece on the floor above, and proceeded to ignore everything to climb up and grab it. I get the feeling you weren't supposed to do this, since the Grimm responded by spazzing out. Whew, here comes another mutated Beowulf, but since we've already unlocked a pro strat of walking behind him, he quickly becomes a pushover. And I also got him to spaz out by climbing to the top floor, which was pretty funny to watch. Now that that's finished, we head to the docks, and Team RWBY, like the lemmings they are, get the genius idea to walk inside this open shipping container. And I have to say, they are so lucky that the plot demands these girls stay alive. Because as far as we know, that container could have been turned over and dumped inside of a giant meat grinder. We arrive on this isolated island with no communication to the outside world. A truly horrifying scenario considering the last time miners were left alone on an island. But unlike them, we can beat anything that moves to death with our fists. A quick stroll down the beach triggers the island security, who are clearly unhappy with me invading their paradise. These are melee androids, and despite the generic name, they are not to be underestimated. Not only are they strong and have a deceptively long range, but they can also recover while you're mid-combo and counterattack. This can lead to these annoying moments where you're hit out of an attack that you were doing to it. It honestly feels really cheap. After that ordeal, we ran into a fence that's not connected together. It's just like loosely in the way. Yang must be mentally challenged because not only could she punch through this fence with relative ease, but she requests a crowbar, when bolt cutters are clearly the better tool to use. This roadblock is so pointless, it's almost funny. The path you take is so short and leads into the same area that was blocked off. The fence should have just been open. We'll then treat it to an oblivion moment as Barbara stumbles over her line.
Let's push the button up there.
And they just keep it instead of doing another take. No time to focus on that because after opening the door, I discover a fence that's all by its lonesome. What is it doing here? What is it keeping out? Was this even meant to be here? When we disable the last jammer, some old dude starts talking to me.
That's better.
This is Dr. Malo, and he's way too happy to be talking to us. Fucking weirdo. Yeah, this is the big baddie the game's been building up to. He forces us to fight more waves of Grimm while Ozpin drops in to take some personal shots at Malo. Not much is made clear, but they obviously have deep history together. When we're finished, we make our way deeper into the island. The first thing we see starting Chapter 8 is some of Merlot's goo pooling on the ground, which unsurprisingly is hazardous to the touch. To progress, we'll need to turn some valves to shut off the steam that's blocking the way.
Hey now, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Ooh, I don't like how he said that. We find another valve, and I suffer a near-death experience while fighting melee androids as they took turns beating me. When we're done, we learn that Merlot is filling Grimm to the brim with his succulent juices, turning them into what I can describe as your typical roided out gym rat. All of this dialogue being drowned out by the loud hissing noise of the steam. In typical fashion, we do another end of chapter round of waves. It would be here where I'd introduce the last enemy of the game, if I didn't immediately obliterate him. Beating the last wave of enemies causes Merlot to yap about how us ending up on the island was a good thing for him. He's never beating the allegations. We enter Merlot's facility and get the grand tour of the place. Kind of. It's only like one display. He's not a very good tour guide. So I, like an unattended child, run off to put my greasy hands on all of his expensive shit. We enter Merlot's storage of goo and proceed to smash the vats because no one man should have this much goo. While doing this, I discover that if you stand on top of these vats, the Grimm aren't able to reach me. That means I'm free to wail on the vats from above so long as I hit it in the right spot.
We'll rebuild it in no time. This way.
Okay, we'll do what you say, but that doesn't mean we trust you.
What a stupid line. Of course we don't trust him. Alright, now let's properly introduce the ranged android. I fucking hate these robot names, man. Dodging their bullets is no problem, but when you get close, they fire a grenade at the ground, bouncing themselves backwards while hitting you. They're quite fond of doing this in the middle of your attacks, and that grenade has an annoyingly big hitbox on it, so watch out. We come to a computer at the end of the hallway that Merlot has stupidly left unlocked, and proceed to upload malware to the computer. The upload takes a while, and Merlot retaliates by sending enemies my way. It's important to note that these are not waves. But technically it is, because the upload bar is not a timer, but increases only after defeating rounds of enemies. This is actually the last time we'll be facing these mutated Beowulfs. Forgive me, Master. I must go all out. Just this once. Our ransomware is successful and I demand $50,000, or else Merlot will be doxxed and turned into a soy jack to be mocked on the internet. Which he doesn't respond well to. Alright, final chapter, and what a journey it's been. Between fighting Grimm, fighting robots and Grimm, and yeah. At this point, I'm gonna have to cope with having no explanation on how Merlot keeps the Grimm alive to be experimented on. This is kind of a big plot hole, but whatever, life goes on. Anyways, Merlot failed to deliver the ransom, so I will now break everything in his facility, including his toilets. This is some bad security, even for Merlot standards. Especially when you realize you can just walk around his floor spikes. Still not satisfied, I destroy more of Merlot's goo, but while doing so, I slit out the vats while doing an attack and explode, forcing me to redo this whole section. Now that Merlot can't spread his succulent juices to his army anymore, we make our way to the testing ground and face one last wave for the road. Should've paid up, old man. It's too late now. I've already made you into the Virgin, and I into the base Giga Chad. With the last wave finished, we face our toughest fight yet. This is Princess, a mutated Deathstalker, and don't worry, she doesn't bite. She stabs! This is Merlot's magnum opus, and it certainly shows, as she can kill you in 2 hits. She's pretty tough. In fact, you'd be surprised how little damage she takes from your attacks. Luckily, she does have a weakness, her tail. The bulk of your damage will come from when she tries to stab you. However, it's not guaranteed that she'll do this attack consistently, so for the most part, you're in for a really long fight. Oh my god, these hitboxes are terrible. What the hell? How did I just get hit when she's all the way over there? It seems when receiving Merlot's full load of goo, Princess, with her big brain, developed psychic abilities. Absolutely horrifying. Well, it's that or her attacks linger way longer than they should. Woo, look at this good girl go, hitting me all the way from the other side of the arena. I really am playing as a child in this mauling simulator. I wish I had kinder things to say, but this was truly an awful fight. Between getting killed in one attack and shitty hitboxes, this was beyond frustrating. But it gets even better. After losing about a quarter of her health, Princess will call for backup. This means you now have to contend with fighting the boss and being shot at and chased by both annoying robots. So this isn't working. I'd like to get in and be aggressive, but I can't risk dying and having to redo the whole fight over again. In some attacks, you can't dodge out of once you're hit, so you're almost guaranteed to die from something like her ranged volley. I feel like this was a bit much. If it was just the fight with the Deathstalker, that's one thing. Besides being cheaply killed in one hit. But the infinitely spawning late game enemies, way to punish me for playing on my own, which wasn't my choice. I'm still in a public lobby. I've unfortunately downgraded to a hit and run strategy. It'll be longer, but I've already been at this for over 30 minutes. I just want to be done. And there we finally have it. That's the final boss of Grimm Eclipse, and boy am I glad it's done. Merlot goes nuclear and blows up his lab with him in it, and we escape in the nick of time. But at least now I can see the end cutscene of what happens after this absurd adventure. Or not. No cutscene or dialogue to celebrate finishing the game, just stats and credits. Oh yeah, and that Easter egg I mentioned before? It's just Merlot laughing with the credits instead saying, "The end." Or is it? I guess to hint at another game with him in it, which is funny because the only RWBY games after Grimm Eclipse was a mobile game that shut down 2 years later, and a shitty side-scroller set in Volume 7 that no one played. Neither of those games was he in or even mentioned. In fact, for a supposedly canon game, Merlot is only ever mentioned in that horrible DC crossover that no one watched. So after the credits, my game freaked out and put me in some weird bugged out lobby. Not sure what this was about, but I had to force close the game completely because I was stuck here. So the story mode is only good for so long until it becomes the same boring slog. How do the other game modes fare? The other game modes in Grimm Eclipse can be described as being perfectly fine. At least one of them is. The Horde mode has you defending nodes from waves of Grimm. Managing turret placement and where you should spend your time protecting undefended nodes is pretty fun. It's not a bad mode, but the punishment for losing even one security node is steep. If you're playing solo, it'll be difficult to protect them all. I can't really say the same about the Grimm Gauntlet. You're just fighting endless waves of Grimm, but with even less context. By the time you finish the story, you're probably fed up with fighting waves of enemies. I also think the difficulty setting is worth talking about. Grimm Eclipse has one of the better difficulty options. Instead of making enemies spongier, it increases the amount of them on screen. I like it, but it can be really annoying sometimes. And I'm honestly not sure if defending the security node solo is possible in Eclipse difficulty. At least it wasn't for me. A lot of the same things can be said. It'd be better with another person, and I wasn't able to find anybody. At least, not at first. The entire time I played through the story, I made sure to keep my game open for anybody to join. For the whole week, I didn't get a single person to connect, and it wasn't through lack of trying either. I made sure to play during what I thought was a peak player count. I never found anybody in my initial run of the campaign, but I was determined. After playing through both side modes, I spent the rest of the time trying to connect to a game with these mysterious cryptids. And after about an hour, I found life on Grimm Eclipse. They seemed as shocked as I was to find another person lurking around. Better yet, when we started, another person joined, and we had a lively game going. This is the intended experience, even if we didn't get a fourth member. Grimm swarmed in large groups as we bounced off each other, setting up team attacks as we cut down the large hordes. This wasn't bad. In fact, I had fun, for what little time I spent with these people. But what they told me is what really resonated with me. When I asked what brought them back to the game, they responded that this was something they could come back to from time to time. Just turn off their brain and relax. I've been critical and even a bit harsh at times, but my overall experience wasn't terrible. Disappointed at times and even frustrated, but not bad enough that I'd be turned off from coming back. It's a shame that Rooster Teeth never did another RWBY title in this style, because with some refinement, Grimm Eclipse has so much potential to be a really fun game. It's just held down with some not so great choices. I didn't come into this planning to hate Grimm Eclipse. I love hack and slash games, and I must have liked it to some extent, considering I had about 50 hours before picking it back up for this project. I don't know if I could recommend getting Grimm Eclipse, especially if you're not a fan of the show. I'd say, if it's on sale and you have a couple friends, go for it. Otherwise, you're not missing out on much by not buying it. Grimm Eclipse is in a tough spot. If you're not a fan of the show, you most likely would have never bothered with it. If you were a casual fan and played this, you most likely dropped it after the final update. It's not bad, just extremely mediocre, and that's okay. The people who are still playing are able to overlook its issues and still have a good time. So in a way, calling RWBY Grimm Eclipse a dead game is a little disingenuous, as it succeeds in having a very small and dedicated player base. So a little post-editing update, out of nowhere Grimm Eclipse has had a spike in players back in April. I have no idea where this came from and I couldn't find anything about its sudden resurgence, but it really shows what a dedicated fanbase this game has. As for me, I think I'm done here. I did everything I set out to do, and I feel like I get what this game means to those who stuck around. I want to give a big thanks to my friend who read over the scripts and checked my grammar. He's a real one for that. You should also consider liking the video and subscribing, or else Merlot will show up to your bedroom and fill you with his succulent juices. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care.